You've probably seen in the walkways the schedule that I have chosen for our journey through Lent. We're going to go through the Psalm. Started on Ash Wednesday in Psalm 32 and rejoicing in the forgiveness of God and taking comfort in being forgiven by God. We continue now with Psalm 121, looking at God's provision for us. I lift my eyes to the hills. Where does my help come from? My help comes from the Lord, the maker of heaven and earth. He will not let your foot slip. He who watches over you will not slumber. Indeed, he who watches over Israel will neither slumber nor sleep. The Lord watches over you. The Lord is your shade at your right hand. The sun will not harm you by day, nor the new moon by night. The Lord will keep you from all harm. He will watch over your life. The Lord will watch over your coming and going, both now and forevermore. Amen. May God add his blessing to this reading of his word. Again, amen. Back when I was still going to school in Alaska, I was in a bachelor pad with 3 other young men. It's unique. Each of 4 of us eventually got married right out of that bachelor pad and moved on to homes of our own, and of course our space was given up to other bachelors who came in after us. It was quite a unique rate of turnaround going through that bachelor pad. But at this pad, I roomed with one pretty good friend of mine. His name is Brian Lotes. He spent his summers in Alaska working in fish canneries. They smelly, dangerous work, but it's good pay work as well because of it, the high rate of danger in there. So he'd go away in the first part of the summer for about 2 months and get it dirty and stinky and smelly handling all the fish, but getting a lot of money in the process. Then he'd come back to Fairbanks, and he had about 3 or 4 weeks left before classes would start. And I remember one summer he decided he's going to take off and go exploring. And so he went down into the mountains south of Fairbanks, and he just explored and wandered and had a good old time with his tent, and he took some dried food to eat, and he just lived it up as best he could. And he found some unique areas that he wanted to do some more exploring in. And he came back and he showed us whereabouts it was on the map, and a bunch of us thought, wow, that's a really cool idea. I hope you have fun, Brian, going out there, because I couldn't do it. I was busy working and trying to make my own ends meet, being prepared for college in the upcoming semester. Well, after several years had gone by and we'd all been married then, a bunch of us married people decided, hey, let's get together and explore some of these areas where Brian had done. And Brian and his wife were still living near there, and so we all got together, and we went down into these mountains one weekend to go exploring. Now, this was in the late spring. Most of the snow had pretty much all melted right around in the low areas, but since it was in the mountains south of Fairbanks, there was still a good deal of snow there. So we hiked up into the mountains, just enjoying our time, being with each other, enjoying the opportunity to get outside. It was nice, fresh, brand new day. It was clear, it was bright, it was very mild. And we hiked up into the mountains onto one of the glaciers that Brian had a chance to, he had gotten up into there a little bit, and he explored some ice caves that were up there. Well, we found a place that was good for camping by simply saying, okay, this is good, and we dropped our stuff down. And then we went to these ice caves. Now, I had never been in an ice cave before. Many of you may have seen the movie Ice Age, an animated feature about animals banding together, and during part of that film, they go inside some ice caves, and the producers and stuff, they all ham it up. There's extinct creatures who are preserved in the ice, and there's even a UFO preserved in the ice, all that sort of thing. But the one thing that's familiar about these ice caves that I explored is that there was quite a bit of clear ice, as it showed in the film. Clear ice that you look into, and as you realize you're standing on a glacier. Snow had been falling in this area for years and years. It may have been decades, may have been centuries of snow falling and being compressed into ice, and then slowly moving its way down the mountain to eventually the very end where it falls off. And we're in this ice cave, and we can look into the ice. It was clear. We could see air bubbles suspended in the ice. We could see dirt particles, streaks of dirt. through the ice. And in some areas, the clearness would fade into a white translucence. In others, the clear would fade into a blue or a blue-green tint. Extravagant beauty, smooth, clear, crystal clear. The ice caves were wonderful. I'd never seen something like that before. A cherished memory that I have with me. Then we came out of those caves and we went back to where we were, where our camp had been set up. And this was over a weekend. It was a Saturday, Sunday issue. We knew that we were going to be gone on Sunday, and so Amy turned to me. At that point, everyone had known that I was interested in pursuing a path leading toward being a minister. Since we knew we were going to be gone on Sunday, Amy said, you should do the devotional on Sunday. You should do it. Oh, okay, yeah. So I prepared myself for the devotional, and I chose this particular passage, Psalm 121. I look up unto the mountains and to the hills, from whence does my help come? My help comes from the Lord. There we were in the mountains in central Alaska. Looking up, you could see the peaks towering above us. You could see the valley spread out below. You could experience the wonder and grandeur of God in that small area. And I can't remember the full gist of what I had to say that morning. But I know I spoke about God taking care of us, God always watching over us. I mean, look at what God has made. There are many places in this world where we can go and you can experience the wonder and the great sheer joy of God's beautiful creation. From towering trees to deep valleys, mountains, a beautiful seascape. There are many, many opportunities to see the wonder of creation. One of my personal favorites is look out at a clear night sky and see the stars just spread across that black velvet. That's my favorite. I've been an avid stargazer from my earliest days. I can never have enough of watching in the night sky. And some of what this psalm shares with us, it shares about God's provision. Look at this beautiful world God gave us. We just get to live in it. We get to enjoy all of it. Did we plant the big redwood trees that grow in California? Heavens, no. They've been there long before any of us even considered existence. Most of those have been there since even before Jesus was born. Did we sculpt any of the painted rock caves that you can find in the southwest desert here in America? Of course not. Those are taken care of over time of water rushing through there and sculpting, transforming those caves into the beauty that they are. Or look at the Grand Canyon. Some of you have probably been there. Certainly we've seen pictures of the Grand Canyon. The immense beauty of what that massive fissure in the earth has turned out. Have you explored caves? Caves are fun to go through. That's another one of my hobbies, spelunking. I just like the name of it, spelunking. Get down in those caves and you see the stalactites and the stalagmites and all the other formations that have been formed over time as water has seeped through the cracks. God has created a wondrous and beautiful place for us, hasn't He? But more so than just this beautiful world, God gives us life. God gives us breath. God watches over us and takes care of us. The last verse of what I read for you today, in verse 8, the Lord will watch over your coming and going both now and forevermore. Now, that's not simply a way of saying God's going to take care of you leaving here and coming back here. It's a Hebrew way of choosing two opposites, your coming and going, to encompass everything. When you come, you do certain things in this one place, and when you go, you take care of other things, and you're engaged in other activities. This particular passage is about God taking care of us in all that we do, everywhere we go, whoever we're with. God will be taking care of us wherever we are. God's provisional hand is upon us, guiding us, directing us, encouraging us, equipping us, preparing us. What's that one phrase? God's still working on me. I'm not finished yet. God is continuing to work with us day in and day out, preparing us for what's yet to come. Verse 5, the Lord watches over you. The Lord is your shade at your right hand. The Lord protects you from harm. Now, yes, we do get hurt in life, don't we? The death of a loved one is grievous and painful to us, because someone whom we've loved and cherished is no longer with us. It hurts. But God walks with us through that pain, supports us in the midst of that pain so that we can continue on in life. We can stand up firmly, knowing that God is with us and watches over us. Will ever be the one who protects us and guides us. Verse 2, my help comes from the Lord, the maker of heaven and earth. As I've shared with you, look at creation. The stars, the world around you. If God made all this, what is it that God can't do? If God created you and me, you think God cannot handle the problems we face? God can't help us in the midst of the pain, the agony, the fear, the troubles? God knows all those things. And God delights in the fact that we can share them with Him, that we turn to Him for help in dealing with those things. They're all difficult. If it's ranging from anything like, can't balance my checkbook this month, I don't know where those last 2 cents are. I've had those times, and I've struggled for a week trying to figure out where those last 2 cents are. And I finally found them. I didn't want to have to put the time and effort into it, but I knew it was important to do so, and God enabled me to do so. I prayed hard and long during that time, and I found them. When I was in college, one of my roommates died. 6 of us were rooming together, and one of my roommates died 2 weeks before the end of the semester. I didn't know what to do. I was numb for those 2 weeks. And in finals, right after that, I was surprised that I was able to even be able to answer the questions, because Jason's death was just tragic. You know, we were in our early 20s. You don't consider death then, do you? We're getting ready for life. We're being prepared in college to take on the great fullness of what life has to offer us once we're out of college and into our jobs and moving on. But Jason died, complications because of asthma that he had all his life. On Friday, he left to go home. We said, yeah, see you, Jason. Well, the rest of us were all staying behind. And we all remembered at his funeral that the last words we had to Jason weren't particularly words of friendship or love. We teased him that he was going home and the rest of us were staying behind. And those are the last things that we ever had to say to him. That hurt us on Sunday morning when we learned that he had died. And as we consoled each other together, and as we thought about what it meant, how are we going to move through this? We all knew that the last words we said to him weren't particularly fond ones. They weren't hateful ones, but they weren't particularly fond ones. Well, we knew that Jason loved us. And we also knew that we loved Jason too. And that's what made the difference for us. And that God loved us and loved Jason, and that God was overseeing all of our relationships together. Well, we stopped being upset with the fact that we didn't have very good words to say to him when we left on Friday. And on Tuesday, when we attended his funeral and said our final goodbyes to Jason, we did so with heavy hearts and dampened spirits indeed. But we were lifted up by God's Spirit in our hearts. Jason was now no longer living a life that had to deal with his asthma problems. Jason is now unencumbered by all of life, because this life is directly in relationship to God. This story reverberates throughout this congregation. All of us have dealt with death in some capacity. It's not easy, is it? And Jason was just a friend of mine. He wasn't my mother, my dad, my sister, my son. But it still was keenly felt, just as the deaths that you have felt are also so keen. Our hope is in Christ, though, isn't it? The first fruits, the one who's been resurrected, and we who follow after him are joint heirs with Christ in the resurrection. And so as we deal and struggle with our mortality here and now, we know that there is a future in which mortality is gone away with, in which all of our cares, all of our worries, all of our concerns are ceased and no more. We don't have to deal with them in any way when we choose to live for God now. And part of living for God now means that God's going to carry us through what we do here in this life. It doesn't mean that someone's death, a loved one's death, is going to suddenly stop hurting. It's going to hurt us for the rest of our lives. That's the simple and straight truth. But the joy is that God walks with us through the midst of that pain. God carries us and takes care of us. I've already shared with you of the poem called Footprints. God carries us when we can't go on our own. The altar is different today, isn't it? Those brass candlesticks, the nice brass offering plates, the cross, I've taken them down. I usually do this during Lent. I usually strip all that away. It's part of a Lenten sacrifice I make you do. Because I have a message to proclaim, not just by what I say, but also here. God's protecting us on the journey of life that we have. And I put up here some common implements that go along with the journey. My backpack. Actually, that's Amy's backpack, the smaller one. For carrying our provisions, for carrying food, carrying clothes, carrying other things necessary for the journey to keep us going. A map, so we know where we're going. We can follow the route properly. Amy helped me set this up. She's got this open to a map of Texas. Okay. A map for getting to where we're going, so we can get there properly without losing our way. And the flashlight that I dropped. Sometimes when you're out hiking, you're out too late getting to where you're going. I've experienced those problems. You end up having to deal with bruises, cuts and sores on the way, and you get to your destination a little bit late. A light to light your path. A good hat to protect you from the sun while you're out on your journey, right? To keep you going, so you're safe. You're not getting sunburnt. It's not something else you have to deal with while you're on your journey. And a great pair of walking boots. Good. These are not a good pair, but they are a pair of good footwear. Because walking and hiking puts a lot of effort and stress on your feet. You need to wear something that'll protect your feet properly for the journey ahead. For the journey we have many things to carry with us for the journey. Certainly many of those things are the relationships that we have with each other. Without having the support and backing of my family, I don't think I would ever have gone to Alaska, even though they weren't with me at that time. My grandparents were, I guess. But my mom and dad were overseas. My mom and dad loved the idea that I went to Alaska. My dad says, boy, I wish I could have gone with you. And he was like rooting me on from the get-go. When he heard that I was leaving, he'd say, go, go, go. He thought it was a great thing that I do that. And without the support and comfort of care of my family, I don't know that I would have bothered to go through to finally become a preacher. I met with a great deal of adversity along the way. Apparently Satan didn't want me to go that far. And there's many times that I doubted. Did I hear God correctly? Really? Did I really hear that? Or was that just, something I ate or just something that seemed appropriate at the time? But my family kept supporting me and encouraging me to go on. What else supports us for our journey? Daily Bible reading. Got the Bible right there. It's essential to the life we live. Walking the Christian walk, going on the journey. I forgot to bring it out, my copy of Pilgrim's Progress by John Bunyan. The story of the pilgrim named Christian on the journey to the holy city, always able to see that holy city somewhere far ahead in the distance. At first, you couldn't see the city itself. It's just the gleam, the shine of the city up ahead, the bright light. But as his journey progresses, eventually he can get closer to see the city and make out more of it. Christian fellowship. A body, a community of faith, where we can support and encourage each other, where we can be about the business of God's work in the world together. It's not just things that we do because this is what church people do. It's things that we do because we are God's people. We respond in love. Right? The last 2 months, we have responded in love with free meals on the last Saturday of the month. We've already got our first thank you card out of it. That's affirmation, folks. We're going to continue to do this for sure, because it's affecting and reaching someone. We're not providing a meal to someone who desperately needs a meal. We're just sharing love with them. Bible study. Gertie's leading a Lenten study. Steve is leading a book study right now. This is called Christian conferencing. Helps us to understand maybe a little more clearly our role in God's world. Who are we? What is God hoping for us to be? What is God building us up for? And how can we be better at doing what we do together with each other? How can we encourage each other in the journey ahead? These are material things that may serve as reminders, as allegorical pointers toward the things that we have in the Christian journey to make. Footwear, flashlight, hat, maps, all of them can have a spiritual counterpart. Prayer, fasting, Bible reading, communing with each other.